and we will be joined by Kaye, who was one of the inventors of a program called CQC-Pro, which is now part of Citation. I'm sure that many of you know of and use Citation. And basically, whilst it's not going to be a requirement that you use software programs and have your business run on an IT basis, you will need to be able to have CQC remotely inspect your organization. So in that sense, you will need to have some form of IT in place. And Dudley could give you a lot more advice on this than I can, but you need to have advice that is sound, and you need to have the right systems in place. And we are seeing the new CQC inspection regime having a very different approach in some areas to the way that we've been used to, or that you will have been used to working. I think that's fair enough to say, Dudley.
No, thank you, Peter. I think definitely indeed. I think thanks for that, Peter. I just want to also add in with some things that I've seen at the beginning of this year. We would know we've just recovered from 2023 and we're starting 2024. There's various areas, as Peter's mentioned, that we're also working within, but also as well as providers. I think what I'm getting is the thought of the understanding of, as it is a business and we're running businesses, and I know the cost of living, the cost of care can be quite expensive. Definitely for example, domiciliary sort of care providers, there's been an issue around tenders, winning business contracts, spot contracts. So it's definitely a time at the beginning of the year to set your stall out of your strategy and your plan of action, but also as well looking at your business to make sure it's compliant. The other area that we're looking at, especially with the overseas and international recruitment, as Peter's mentioned, there's a lot of people who have brought people into the country, but also the practices and the processes that people have used. We are running some sessions related to that, and there are, and spoken to a few lawyers, there will be, and potentially the notion of suspensions of those who may not have got it right. So it's important to have got what you've done right and to have a look and speak to experts and for the expertise of what people are doing as well. So please do bear that in mind. Another area which I'm going to be touching upon today is around EDI or DEI, which is the inclusion and equality and diversity. CQC are looking into practices, especially now with the new framework, or whether you're compliant in regards to your clients that you have, whether you're looking after the protected characteristics, whether it be those from ethnic diverse backgrounds, disability, and also your staff as well, mental health and well-being. And I do know CQC are now marking people down regards to that. So make sure you have things in place in your practices and your compliances. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, sorry, just a phone call from somebody who couldn't seem to get in. Ali, talk to me, Ali.
I'm talking to you. Yes, hello. I'm terribly sorry. I am at another conference at the moment, so I'm sitting in a hallway.
Right.
So do excuse me. I will put the screen on, but I'm not too sure how it will affect my connection. Hello, everybody.
Okay. On the basis that you're here and you've got time slots, would you like to go first?
I would happily go first. I did send you over a PowerPoint, but I'm happy to share my screen if that's okay with you.
Well, I've made you co-host, so you can do that, but I do have your slides.
That's marvellous. Right, so do excuse me while I just load this up, folks. I hope you're all having a nice day. And if you've not got your screen on yet, it would be great to be able to see your screen, because that really helps me and to see whether we're getting through to you or not. So let me just set this up. Can you see that? No? Hello? Can you see anything?
Not yet, Ali.
Not yet, Ali. Okay, that's good. Okay, we'll keep going. But whilst I'm setting this up, I would like to reiterate completely what's just been said. I think it's really important that people are aware of the paperwork that's being required by CQC and how they're requesting it at the moment. We've had our very first report back from the first CQC inspection, I haven't had a chance to read through it, but it does look very much more as if it's focused towards the needs of the public doing assessments on your services, more so than it is focused towards the needs of you being able to identify change. So do be aware of the way things are written, because I think that's going to be a very important thing in the future as we move forward. So can you see that?
Yes.
Oh, marvelous. You see, I filled in just the right amount of time. Okay, I have asked for these slides to be sent to you because there's quite a lot of information in this, but I'd like to just highlight a few different pieces that are coming through. First of all, I'd like to just say, in reflection to what Dudley was saying, is I'm at a conference today that we have been running for the Department of Justice, and this is around supporting people who've come into this country and have had DBSs done. Those DBSs that you have maybe checked 2 or 3 years ago, they're now being greater references to how those have actually been recorded. So do be aware that you may want to look at any courses that we're running. They're free, they're funded. Do take a look at our website, but more importantly, have a look at how you have recorded your DBS and how you have reflected that, because there may be changes, because people were doing self-declaration, and that self-declaration may not reflect an accurate interpretation of where they were previously in their own country. So just a little note on that. In the meantime, I'm just going to go through some slides that I have with me today. So thank you so much for coming along. I'm sure all of you know who we are. If you don't, we've got a serious problem with communication. But I am your locality manager. I've been in post for about 6 months now. So if we haven't been introduced, please do take a look out for me, or if I can help you in any way, do contact me. So some of the latest information that we have at the moment, we've got some really good resources coming along line. And I'm sure all of you regularly use our website, which I think is, as an ex-practitioner myself, it was one of the most useful places to go for things. But there's not only information that we offer to everybody, but we do offer also some really, really interesting courses. And there's a management conference coming up. I know Bedfordshire is quite a long way away, but I will feed back to you any items that come up from that. We've also been shining a light very much on this keep learning situation. As you're aware, more and more we're asked to evidence the training that people do. And I think it's important that we not only look at how we train people on a more traditional level, but if there's peer-to-peer training, as Dudley has alluded to, you have to keep that recorded. There's so much that we share with our colleagues, and being able to record that type of training is really, really empowering for people, and looks very good for CQC to see that you recognise the importance of that peer-to-peer relationship. Now, COVID has come virtually to an end, but I wanted to speak to you about any funding that you may require. Until the end of March, there's still some funding available to cover for the rapid induction programme. If you've had new members of staff come on board to you recently, do have a look at that rapid induction programme, and there's still money from the Workforce Development Fund that can help you for funding all that. And again, we're happy to talk to you about any of those sort of trainings. We've got a great connection, David, and I know Peter you work with him as well. David Vincent does an awful lot in regards to the Workforce Development Fund, and he's just got some more money down. So do think about putting on your claims for all the training. We'll come back to that in a moment, but we've got a little bit of money, as I say, for the fund that has come in recently, and it does cover some what we call quick wins. And David would explain this to you better than I, but we've got some great data courses, for example, that are an hour, 2 hours in the morning. You could send your staff off to that and then claim back the money for that course when they've completed it. So do take a look at our Workforce Development Fund opportunities. And if you're not involved with it at the moment, who wouldn't want free money? In all honesty, for training, it is a big, big help. It's not necessarily to pay for the training courses, but I used to use the money to pay for the backfill to allow people to go off and do that learning, which I think is a really important part of how we plan our workforce development. So we've also got some really good courses coming up through in regards to the moving up. You alluded earlier, Dudley, to the need for awareness of minority groups. And this is a really good course for people who may be with your organisation and haven't felt that they've had the opportunity to develop. So do take a look and have a look at the minority training that we're offering. The registration has closed, but I know that there is a waiting list for this. So don't be worried about going ahead and asking to see if you can go onto the waiting list. We've got the assessment framework, which I think is probably one of the biggest challenges that we have at the moment. What's it going to look like? How are we going to do it? How's it going to be fed back to us? And how can we use the information we receive to make better situations? So do have a little look and see some of the conferences. Again, we're doing some good online pieces for that at the moment. And also the registered managers meetings. If you haven't got your colleagues involved in the registered managers meetings, spread the word. So why do we do all this? I think it's really important for us to be able to predict our data and be able to say to the people that are commissioning our services that we have certain challenges in the area in regards to recruitment, but also that we have certain training needs. One of the key things I would always do whilst using commissioners is to actually refer back to the workforce data sets and show what sort of challenges exist within your own area. You should be able to drill down to a very, very local postcode situation and look at how that data is impacting your business and how you develop things. So some little information for you as registered managers. We've got some great services available at the moment. We are delivering some wonderful topics. And if you aren't hearing about them in the webinars, hearing about our webinars, then go onto the website, have a listen. I listen to them while I'm walking my dog. It's a great time to listen to how other people are coping with some of our common challenges. And it's always stuff there that I'm learning that I didn't know before. So our colleague Kaye is great at that. We've got the opportunity to look at diversity. And again, it's really important to register your awareness of diversity and the fact that you are considering this not just for your staff members, but also for the people who are living or working or you're supporting in your services. So do have a little look out to how you can join in those resources and register for some of the training. It's so important to know what the good practice is in this area. I'm going to send you some of these things, so I'm not going to talk too much about the seminars that are coming along, but you've got all the details that are coming through, and you can see that we've got some great articles as well that have developed all sorts of new skills. Digitalization is a key part of the future. I appreciate completely that we may not as yet being required to offer digitalization, but I can guarantee that most people would anticipate for you to have at least a robust digitalization for the people that you're supporting, particularly in residential situations. So if you've got good internet connections for the people that you're supporting, you should really have good internet connections for the work that you're doing. And there's lots of different companies out there that can offer that support. But whatever you do, get your staff confident with digitalization. They're using their mobile phones an awful lot and don't always understand that that knowledge and skill is easily transferable over to a PC or to the data that we hold for our clients. And it's a really lovely way of being able to put yourself into the selling position of being able to offer families information if that's the data that they're wanting and if it's the software that you're choosing. So think carefully about how, if you haven't entered the digital market, who you want to talk to for that. And I know there's an awful lot of support that we get from the care associations and the relationships they have with the industry to see which different resources are out there and what might suit your particular business. And that's large or small. Small companies will not get away with saying, oh, we're too small to turn. We've all moved to a digital world now. So thinking about some of the other courses that we've got some really interesting pieces in regards to the care certificate coming through at the moment. Now, some of you may remember, I'm just flicking through these slides so that you can see what you can look at later. The care certificate has been an ongoing issue for a very long time. And what we have been talking about is how we can standardize that care certificate. And we're now getting to the point where we're looking at creating new and interesting ways of ensuring that people can have information at their early stages of induction that can carry them through their career and is transferable to different areas. We've got some great stuff starting on the website, and the announcements have happened in the last couple of weeks to help us really begin to plan how that induction is going to impact our long-term recruitment and retention skills. We'll tell you more about that in the future, but part of understanding the future is being able to evidence to CQC that you are aware as a leader what's coming along down the line. So it ties in quite nicely with the piece I've got here. I don't know whether any of you have had the opportunity to read the Compassionate Leadership piece, but a really, really interesting book and very, very engaging when we talk about how we support our well-being of our staff, which, as we know, is part of that well-led agenda now. So we've got some different pieces coming up in regards to the work that we're doing with quality compliance systems. We've been working with them for a little while now, and we've got some wonderful webinars that I would strongly advise any of you who've got the opportunity to listen to, and many of us will do it. We'll put our headphones on whilst we're doing other bits and pieces and listen to these webinars. But these, I've found them really interesting. So have a little look again. You'll have the email pieces, and you can see you can click on the Register Now piece, and it'll take you directly to those links. Those single assessment frameworks are going to be worked on more and more. And today we've had, as I say, the reports come out from the first homes, and we'll have the opportunity to really feed back to you, I hope, at the next meeting, how those single assessment frameworks are affecting the delivery of people and how they're completing their forms. Everybody's nervous of it. You're not alone. We're all a little bit in the dark as to how it's all going to feel and how different inspectors are going to initiate their relationships with us. So it'll be an interesting one to move forward on. So podcast I've spoken about, which is really important, but I think one of the things that we often forget about is our deputy managers. So we've been developing a deputy manager network to help the next generation of managers come through the system and develop their skills and support them to understand what's going to be expected of them as they move through their career. I would strongly advise, if you've got your deputy manager coming through and they look like the sort of person who would be keen to develop those skills, get in touch, find your local deputy manager network and let them engage online. They're the people who are going to be sitting in your seats in the future. So it's really important that we give them the skills to communicate in one of these meetings and also know where they can get the support they want outside of the business. So again, we've got a little bit details on the Deputy Manager Network. Do access it through the QR codes. I'm loving the QR codes now. They really do help us when we just put our smartphone up and suddenly we're through to a different page. So worthwhile getting your Deputy Manager engaged at this stage and let them understand that training is going to be part of their development. And it's not just the standard level 5s, but so much more. So we've got some great advice lines come up recently that I've had some interesting feedback on some of these, that we've got people who are actually having conversations about the challenges of funding. Now, it may not be that we can give you the answers, but sometimes talking over the problems, as I know Peter and Dudley often are there for you to do, makes a really big difference to the way you're able to handle the challenges that you're facing. So I'm going to just very briefly touch on some of the recruitment and retention development tools that we've got. We've obviously got some great e-learning coming down the line. And again, a lot of this is claimable back if you're on the Workforce Development Fund. The management training courses are great. And I would strongly advise, again, deputy managers, perfect for them to begin to develop their skills. And again, it's all claimable back. And it's what we call a quick win, because you get a little bit of money for each module that they attain to. We've got some very interesting pieces coming along around getting prepared for CQC. So again, quick win courses, these. And our digitalisation programmes. Now, in our local areas, we're working very closely with the health authorities and the local authorities to ensure that digitalisation is going to be part of the standard delivery pieces. So if you'd like to know more information about that, please do come along and talk to me about this. The managers' induction standards are really important if you've got new managers coming along line. And I would say that even if as an older manager, I wouldn't be afraid of having a little look at them again, because it always is good to refresh some of the knowledge that you have. So I'm going to allow you to go through these pieces on your own, some great pieces on some peer-to-peer work. The culture of an organisation is becoming very important to evidence within the CQC information. And that's not just the culture that the people that you're providing services for, but more importantly for who your staff are. And this comes back down to how you're doing your workforce planning, how you're thinking about changing and developing your courses. And I'd be really happy to talk to any of you about that and how culture can be embedded within your processes at the very beginning of somebody coming on board with you. But again, we've got a good downloadable toolkit if you don't want to speak to me directly, but I'm always available to you. So again, a part of that cultural situation is the value-based recruitment, and I'm sure many of you have touched upon that in the past, and we need to be able to evidence that we are recruiting to values. So I have many different different presentations here on different areas, but I'm very conscious that you've got other people coming along, Peter, and you've got an awful lot to do today. So I'm not going to dwell on an awful lot of these pieces, but you can see yourself some of the resources that we can offer. Now, if you can't see how any of the resources that you need, come back to me, because the website is huge and will need a little bit of navigation for you. But if you've got specific issues within your business that you're needing support from basically a national organisation with the expertise of some amazing people, please do speak to us. And if you're doing training and you're not claiming back your WDS, your Workforce Development Fund money, then I'm afraid you're letting money go down the toilet. And you really can gain cash. So if you're talking about being short of money and the commissioner's not paying, this is a way of being able to recoup and keep a good high standard of staff training. So I'm going to just ask, have you got any questions coming up, Peter? I can't see a lot of these.
One quick question for me, Ali. I think
Yeah.
a lot of the time with the funding, a lot of the time care home providers always believe it, the dom care providers always feel left out. So it's good to also let them understand they're also part of it, and everyone.
Oh, yes. I'm not one of those people, Dominic, that sort of says Dudley, sorry, that says that it's only care homes. I fight constantly when I go into meetings to get everybody to understand that care is delivered on so many different levels, and it is domiciliary care, it's residential care, it's personal assistant care. All these areas are areas that we support. We're doing an awful lot, for example, with the personal assistant side of things at the moment, because that's an area that's being commissioned to without an awful lot of support from the central funders. So yes, everything that is here is there for you. It does not alter just because you've got a registered home. This is about the outcomes for the people that we provide services for, isn't it? This is about us making sure that everybody has a service provided by people who are well trained, well supported and well funded. And I can't do anything about the well funded, but I can certainly do something about the trained and the supported. So yes, I completely, Dudley, please, we would always say this is an overview for everybody, and we really want to make sure that we're there and part of your package of support as much as your local association is. We are part of that tooling too. Are there any other questions there that are in need that I can answer? I see you've got about 25. I expect it's probably just people introducing themselves.
I think Ali, I always love when Skills for Care do show their slides, and sometimes it can be overwhelming. I think just to make things as simple as possible, people don't utilize a lot of the resources that's out there. And I think everyone's always head down in what concerns them, what's in front of them. Skills for Care have a broad range of topics, areas which you can go to, and there's various experts that work across the board, including Ali herself, if you even speak to her. So the knowledge of the individuals that work there are there to support you. So it's beyond funding. It's, as you said, short videos, training, updates. And I think another area which is also fun enough, which has come to the fore, is around international and overseas recruitment and overseas recruitment. The WF funding can also be used to actually help train those staff. So people always say, well, people from overseas can't get funding. Actually, you can utilize that as well. So there's a lot there to unpick. And it's good if you know what you're looking for on the website. So try and type it in directly rather than trying to navigate it as a whole, because it can be a lot. But other than that, it's really a really good resource.
And I would also say that so many of you may find it looks so great. Pick the phone up, send me an email, just drop me a line and we can talk directly. I can talk you through some of these things. From the point of view as a local locality manager, I've been doing this for nearly, as I realized the other day, nearly 40 years. So all sorts of different experiences that I can call on. But the thing I've been blown away with whilst working with Skills for Care is the amount of people that we have with such experiences. I see we have a hand up.
Hello. I think you've got a question, so please unmute your microphone and away you go.
It does help if you unmute, my dear. It's that or interpretive dance, and nobody ever wants to do the interpretive dance.
Can you hear me?
I can indeed. Lovely.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I was just going back to the training. I just want to ask about the NVQ programs like level 3. Do you, I just want to find out, do you guys support with the level 3 and like the level 5 level? I just want to know so that
there's a lot of different ways to do training, isn't there? And there's all sorts of different things. I mean, certainly the Workforce Development Fund is great because it does allow you to claim back on the level 3s and what have you. It's about the completion date. You complete the work and then you claim. But I would also say that one of the other things that I would be looking at too, and I'm certainly not not saying that Skills for Care's Workforce Development Fund isn't there, but certainly look at apprenticeships, because that funding is there as well. And the opportunity for us, either if you don't have apprenticeship levy, we can also use levy from other areas. Our local authorities and our health authorities have offered to trade off levies. So having the opportunity to claim back that training happens with the Workforce Development Fund at completion. But obviously, if you're doing apprenticeships, there's a different funding stream for that. But yes, there is plenty of money out there for that type of thing. And if it's not one fund, there is more and more funds coming down the line. So certainly, are you signed up to the WDF?
Yeah.
Are you signed up to the Workforce Development Fund?
Yeah. No, I haven't yet.
Ah, well, that's
I'm one of those. When you said it now, that's why I'm so interested in that.
Yeah.
Because I think I've been missing out.
Oh yes, if you haven't signed up for it, you've definitely been missing out. It is such an easy way of doing it. As I say, the bigger courses, maybe it's something that you might not be able to fit in within this financial year, but certainly those smaller courses that help the managers develop some of their skills and that are much more relevant. They're quick wins in regards to money coming back and knowledge going over. So please do. I know Peter has various information and Dudley has various information. You can contact myself and we can link you up to that resource and make sure that you can claim the money you deserve.
Thank you so much for that.
Ali, a question you might be able to answer because I'm not sure about it. There's just been a question in the chat about apprenticeships for overseas recruits.
Unfortunately, as far as I know, we're not in a position at the moment to be able to offer apprenticeships for overseas recruits. However, there's been a lot of conversation around that as to how that's going to sit within the NHS. So I would say watch this space because that may well develop on. There are so many challenges in regards to overseas recruits. We are privileged to have people come to this country and work for us and help us out at a time of need. And it's really important that we give people a degree of equity with that. And I would say that we are certainly working very, very hard to ensure that everybody who comes to work in the country has access to the training they need to do it well and have it well funded. I'll keep you informed as I hear more.
As Ali says, there are a number of funding streams and we are trying to coordinate some of the information because actually finding out what is available and where can be a task in itself. I do hope that dog's not going to start barking because if it does, it'll set my cat off.
Okay, there was another question in the chat very quickly around training companies and whether or not they're accessible to claiming the WDF funding to use for training.
Sorry, which companies? I missed that.
They are. Sorry, can we claim training companies? We use training companies. Can we claim WDF if we use training companies for our training, such as
Most definitely. If you're a registered service, then you can claim back that funding. Your training company may actually have a relationship with a partnership. And I always think, being a trainer myself, that it is worth speaking to your training company first and just say, what relationship do they have with WDF? A good training company will immediately be able to support you with that, and they will be able to point you in the right direction. Nonetheless, if you set up your WDF account, then you will be able to claim back on the courses. And there's an entire list on our website of the courses that are claimable, and it goes on and on and on. If you think you've come to the end of the list, check the next page. It is quite amazing, some of the things that are being funded for at the moment. So it's a very, very good idea to just take a look at the page, talk to your training company. But again, if you want a little bit more support with that, we can help you.
Okay, there's one hand raised. I know, Ali, you haven't got long. I know you probably want to jump into this lovely conference. I think Olu has their hand raised. So if Olu wants to just ask the question, please.
Hi, Ali.
Hello.
This is not regarding training. It's regarding actually the care certificates.
Yes.
So I've been on the Skills for Care website, and I realized that registered managers can also train their staff, the new staff, on the care certificates. So I was just wondering, what's the whole process like? So if I do the training for the new staff, How do I
It's
register?
fascinating, isn't it? It really is
Yeah.
fascinating. The challenges of care certificates. So when the care certificate came out, it was a recommendation that everybody complete that. And Skills for Care were very, very forward thinking and created quite a lot of information to help people through those 15 standards and a certificate at the end.
Yeah.
But the key thing about care certificate is you as a manager have to assess that person's competency within the areas that they're working in. So
Yeah.
those 15 standards is your choice as to how you are assessing those. But you've got to give the evidence accordingly. On our website, we've got a huge amount of resources for that.
Yeah.
And we also have a workbook, which I think is a really worthwhile framework.
Yeah,
And I would hope that most people have the opportunity to use the workbook. Don't print it out. There's half a tree there if you start printing everything out. I've watched people sit with sort of 5 inches of paperwork next to them in the hope that the information will go in. It won't. But the thing is that once you've assessed that person as being competent, you can keep a record of that. Obviously, there's a certificate online you can also download and keep on their file. I would always give them the workbook back, because I believe that if you've worked on knowledge, they should own that knowledge and they can keep that knowledge, and you can always go back to that in supervisions. But we are coming through a new stage with the care certificate. As you may have noticed, there's a whole load of work going on at the moment about commissioning a care certificate at level 2. And that level 2 hopefully will be transferable. And it's a bit like we used to talk about the passports. It's a very similar situation. But from your point of view, if you've got those 15 standards and you know how you're assessing them, and you keep those records to assess, and you can say you believe those people to be competent in the areas required, as long as you keep those records, that is more than sufficient for CQC.
Okay.
Again, if it's electronic, that's great. Or if you want to download the certificate, that gives you the opportunity to put that into somebody's CPD file. But I think as we move forward and we go into the level 2, and the commissioning for the level 2 comes down the line, it's going to make it an awful lot easier for us to be able to see what the level of pitching is, because we all know that as a room full of professionals, we probably all have a slightly different idea as to what proficiency is in each area. But that person's working for you at this stage, so you've got to determine, are they proficient in the area? Have they fulfilled all the requirements of the care certificate? And do bear in mind that although it's a wonderful way to induct your staff, it is not actually required. I think it's best practice, and I would certainly not go away from it, because I think it's, having worked for years and years and years and done inductions from anything of, right, you've turned up, start over there, to having really in-depth inductions. Gail, stop giggling. You've been around like me for far too long. You've obviously seen all these situations of just turning up and going, it's to your left. But we want people to be competent. We want them to be competent in a way that's cohesive across the entire industry. But if you're a competent manager, you'll assess your staff to be competent. And the pure fact you're asking the question says to me you're already going to be keeping those records in a way that's appropriate.
And so I did the training for a few of them, and even I use all the resources on Skills for Care.
Brilliant.
We did the team exercises and everything, and I was really, really happy. But my main question now is, once they pass, because some of them are giving me their workbook for me to have a look at and see, and I'm accessing them in the community as well. But once they got and I can issue them the certificate, can I register that on the WMD workforce?
No, it's not a claimable course, because you haven't got an external trainer coming in on that. However, once we go to a level 2, I think that certainly the Workforce Development Fund and other funds is going to have to recognise that as a claimable piece. You will see that there is some induction pieces that, again, on the Workforce Development Fund, on the slides I've shown you, up until the end of March, there's still claimables for 3 areas of those inductions. And if you look back, I think you'll find you'll be able to bridge over the inductions that are there and maybe claim through that initial induction system. So it's part of a hangover of COVID, but they are taking away that funding at the end of March.
Sure, no problem. Thank you very much, Ali.
That's okay.
Thank you very much for that, Ali. I think we could probably spend all day in on this.
I would say to people, please, now I have been here for 6 months, I actually feel as if I, geographically know the area, but I'm getting to know you as well. So please get in touch with me via email at any time if you've got any queries. There is no such thing as a silly question. There are just things that we don't all know, and we can share each other's skills. So I want to be that resource for you in the local area. I'm learning so much all the time, and I want to continue to learn and be there to help you with any of these questions.
Thanks for that, Ali. Thanks today. And whilst you're there, do say hello to Dominic Headley. I think he worked with you.
Dominic is working with us. He's working with us today. I've
Yes.
known Dominic for many years. It's been
Yeah.
lovely to catch up with him again.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, he's a really great contact within our Skills for Care environment. What is Ali's email? I love that, full lights. I'll put it in just a second. But Dominic is a very, very useful partner of Skills for Care, and he has helped us a great deal when we're looking at that DBS and employing people from difficult areas. So please do consider him as part of the resources that we can offer as well. Are there any courses on tending bidding that anyone can recommend? If you, I will put my email address in here. We don't run any ourselves, but I do know of a rather good company in London that does that. Okay,
Sorry,
so
someone, yeah.
I'm
So-
happy to share, but I will put my email address in there now. And I went on a very good bidding course, which I thought was really useful. If you're looking at the commissioning bids, that is a slightly different situation. And that's something that we've been talking a lot about running some courses for. And it may be something that Peter and Dudley and myself can talk about and offer something that would help you when you look at commissioning. Don't go for large companies who are doing your commissioning bids. They don't understand what you can actually deliver. They understand what they can imagine you can deliver. That's sales for you.
Yeah.
I'll
concur with that one, definitely. But no, thank you very much for that. I think there's so much knowledge there. I think we probably could do another meeting in there. And there's some new breaking news that I will be sharing today, and I'm sure Ali will be happy with that as well, about what we're going to do with this managers meeting this year. So thank you very much, Ali, for coming on board. And please do look, Ali's emails in the chat box. Also do have a look at the website for Skills for Care. And obviously you can follow Ali, email, Skills for Care, email on the WhatsApp group and everything like that. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Just a couple of points. CPD, things like this, meetings like this, you can record as part of your CPD. We frequently see that people are not recording CPD at all. And if they are, they're not doing it very well. And again, it's something that CQC will pick up on. It's pretty simple to do. You don't need anything terribly difficult. You can record it yourself on an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. If you've got a lot of staff, there are pieces of software you can buy. One of the people we work with, they have developed software for the nursing and childcare sector. And they've got, things like 450 staff who've got all their CPD on there. It's all can be remotely checked, and they've got a whole list of CPD they can access, which makes life a lot simpler for all the parties involved. Moving swiftly on, we have Paul Kaye with us, who will introduce himself and his very useful piece of software. Paul, over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Peter, and good morning, everybody. I hope you're keeping warm. It's that time of year, I'm afraid. I will share my screen, and I have some slides, and then, yes, I will be talking about some software that we have developed to help people comply with the new single assessment framework. So, yeah, my name's Paul. I'm from Quick Solutions. It's lovely to meet you all. And I'm going to start by sharing some things that we know about the single assessment framework, things that we're starting to find out now the new inspections under this framework are taking place. So obviously, as you will be aware, we now have the quality statements, which have replaced the key lines of inquiry. A number of things haven't changed. So we still have the 5 key questions. You still have the underlying regulations, which still apply. But the quality statements with their corresponding evidence categories are new and something that people have to get their heads around. We're seeing, I think, from the initial inspections that people are focusing, or the inspections themselves are focusing on a number of key areas. And I just wanted to move to a slide here. There were 14 inspections in the south of England, and they were focusing on these particular quality statements. So there's 34 quality statements in all, and people looking at the safe aspects, as you would expect. And if you read the reports from some of these inspections, which have now been published, it will show quality statement not covered in as part of the inspection. So they were very focused. Most of the quality statements not covered within the new inspection. And anecdotally, it seems that a lot of providers were downrated after the initial inspections, where they've applied a scoring mechanism to the evidence categories and the quality statements. So to give you an example of the scoring that seems to be being applied, you have 5 key questions, the quality statement, and then a combination of evidence categories which apply to each of the quality statements, and then a score which is being applied to those quality statements. So the overall score will be carried over from historical inspection ratings if they haven't inspected, and it looks like in practice they haven't inspected most of the quality statements as part of the new inspection framework so far. Other feedback we've had from the inspection so far is that an awful lot of information was requested in advance to be uploaded through the new portal, and you need to register for the new portal because the existing one is being decommissioned, I think, at the end of February. So it's been quite interesting to see how these scoring has been applied. And also one might question, with one's skeptic's hat on, how you can apply a score to something historical where the evidence category didn't even exist, or even the quality statement didn't exist, because there are new quality statements dealing in things like workforce equality and environmental sustainability, which just didn't exist in the CLOEs. So it's almost a question of more questions than answers from what we've seen from the inspections so far. But what we expect to happen is, as these things start to flow through, that the scores will be presented on the new portal and the new website in something like this. So we've got this picture now where you've got the new framework that you have to try and get your heads around, and the new portal and the ability to supply information to CQC for a more sort of dynamic rating of the quality of your service. So to help with that, we have some software that we've developed called CQC-Pro. Quick Solutions is part of Citation. Many of you may be familiar with Citation and the services provided around the health and safety, HR, ISO compliance, cyber, and things like that. So CQC-Pro is software that enables you to benchmark your service against the new quality statements. You can create evidence, you can add action plans, you can use it to manage documents. There are lots of aspects to the system, and it's tailored for each different service type who uses it. So your residential service, the appropriate quality statements, evidence categories are in there. We also have versions for dom care and other different service types, depending on who you are. The quality statements have replaced the CLOEs. We have the additional guidance from the CQC. We also have new guidance that's been provided by an ex-CQC inspector, recently retired, who's given us her view and sort of decoded a lot of what the CQC may be looking for in those particular areas. We also have other aspects to the system, which is survey and audit templates, which enable you to get that feedback, which you can then present to CQC to maximize your chance of getting a good or outstanding rating. We have oversight dashboards showing the performance of your service against the key metrics that we have in the system. So I'm going to just give you a quick overview, sort of 5-minute run through. But after this meeting today, if anybody is interested, we'd be very happy to go through the system in more depth. So we have a online system. It can be accessed through any web-enabled device, on a laptop, tablet, whatever. And depending on what type of service you are, it will present the quality statements for that service. This dashboard grid is giving me, against the 5 key questions: safe, effective, caring, responsive, and well-led, a view on how we rate ourselves and how much evidence we have. So if I look at safe, which was one of those common areas that they're covering in the initial inspections, the system lays out the quality statements. I can see where I've been before because I have rag rated, and I have some evidence, which is indicated by this little icon on the right. But let's say we were to look at the question for infection control. I can click on the quality statement. It gives me a definition of what that means, various subtopics. And if I click on this little magnifying glass icon, initially it's about an exercise to benchmark my service against that particular statement. So if I'm inspected and I'm asked this question, how do you assess and manage the risk of infection? To help you at this point, we have our assistant. So it details a lot more detail than the CQC provide. This is the CQC's evidence categories for this area, people's experience, feedback. You scroll down, you'll see observation and processes. A quick cynic's view of observation being, if you're not going to cover those areas in your inspections, how can you mark it and give it a score? That we shall see. At the moment, it looks like they're going to be using historical data for that. But as you can see here, we're giving you targets to aim at as a provider. So we're trying to lay out the things you should be looking for. And I like to think when creating evidence on a system like this, that you talk about the building blocks. So do you have the right policies, procedures, and things in place? But also, do you have outcomes and stories that you can tell? Because it's all well and good having the policies, but without the appropriate application of those and the outcomes for people being materially affected, hopefully in a positive way, it's your opportunity to capture this. So in due course, you can share this with CQC through the portal. You can get control and visibility of your own strengths and weaknesses and do something about the weaknesses potentially, drive continuous improvement, and be prepared for commissioners and CQC themselves as and when they come calling. So there's some evidence. I've just borrowed a bit of text there to use as evidence. I can set a reminder. I can delegate an owner or own it myself, and I can attach supporting documentation. So I might have some aspects of my infection control that I want to refer to here. Maybe I've got my audit that I'm going to attach to support my evidence statement. Publish that, and then the final act in this particular aspect is just to rag rate. So it's a repetitive process. It's simple to use. Once you've done it once or twice, I think you'd be happy to go through, and you can see instantly where your strengths and weaknesses are. You can produce reports on demand. If I want a report for SAFE, there's my report for SAFE. I can print that, save it as a PDF if I want, and send it to CQC. And there's a whole raft of other reports on the system to give you real-time control. We have action plans. You can create action plans on the system if you need to and report on those. We have a survey and audit tool. The new framework is dependent largely, looking at the evidence categories, on the feedback from people using services. So we have templates and surveys you can run from here. You can send to people by email, QR codes, you can share them on your website. People fill them in on their smartphone and say whether they think it's a strength or a weakness of their particular service. I just need to move that out of the way to go back to where I was. And what people really like is that CQC-Pro will collate all the responses for you and present them. And you can compare responses over time. So you might do a survey and compare the results from a previous period when you have made some changes and hopefully show a greater degree of satisfaction. We also have an oversight dashboard, which comes with the system. That oversight dashboard enables you to collect information on a weekly or monthly basis relating to the sort of aspects of care, depending on your service type. You can see the sort of areas that this covers. We're talking about your care planning, risk assessments, safeguarding, things like that. And all of that information is presented back to you in configurable dashboards. So you have the opportunity to display what is the key performance aspects of your service based on the data you're collecting weekly and monthly. So I can see here we're plotting a trend of care planning notes, assessments, medication, etc. So we're keeping all of this information and really giving you control and visibility of any sort of differences in the trends over time. If you spot a big spike in numbers, you know, 1 month against another, you might think, well, what's causing that? And obviously prompt you to do further investigation. So I'd recommend this system to you. There is a resource library that comes with it. There's a full package. There's free training. There is support available for each of the key questions. There are literally loads and loads of resources with best practice guidance, as you can see here. We also have, you know, links to key websites, other information, the latest CQC guidance, and we also signpost some of the skills for care guidance, which is apt, bearing in mind the previous presentation. So people use this as a reference system, as a library of information. Primarily, it's about benchmarking your service, familiarizing yourself with the new quality standards, being able to show how your service is sort of continually monitoring the quality assurance of against the standards, and also embedding that continuous improvement into your operations. As you can see from the quality statements, if we look at well-led in particular, well-led, the quality statements talk about governance, management, sustainability. Do you have clear arrangements for that? Well, I would argue this system certainly fits the bill for that. And also, you know, how you focus on continuous learning, innovation, and improvement. Again, this system, when implemented, will give you a real head start in that area. So I just wanted to give you a quick view. I'd be very happy to go into CQC-Pro in more detail with you on a one-to-one basis. My contact details are on these slides, which I'm sure Peter will be happy to circulate. Yeah, we're part of Citation, who have a lot of other services that are available that will support providers as well. So I will stop sharing and give people a chance to feedback. If you've got any questions on anything that I've said, now is your opportunity.
Thanks for that, Paul. Just to say thank you for the presentation. There's a few personal questions I'll ask it afterwards, but I think the common question and theme in the chat box, I'm sure you can probably guess, is how much?
How much?
So I will leave you to share that with everyone.
Okay, so we have a price of £70 per month, which includes a 5-user license for the software and all of the functionality that I've shown you today. That includes support and includes updates. So if CQC change things, then you would be covered from that perspective. We have an offer running for members at the moment. So for your first year subscription, we're offering an additional month free if you sign up in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, act quickly and you'll get an additional £70 worth of use of the system at no extra charge. There are discounts available for groups. So if you buy multiple licenses, and there are different functionality, you know, for groups where we have overviews and different features to see what's going on across multiple systems. In fact, Susie's just asked that question, so I'll answer that one there. So if you have a quality management team, you can have various functions available to manage the quality across multiple locations.
Thank you. Whilst we've got another question here, there's a hand up from Olu. So Olu, please come in. I think you want to.
Hi. I just wanted to find out, can we use this system in conjunction with what we have right now? So we are currently using Dudley, but if we are to sign up to the QC
CQC-Pro.
Yes.
CQC-Pro. Yeah.
Would that work hand in hand? Would that link up together?
We don't integrate directly with those services, but we're happy to have conversations. So Birdie would be your care management system.
Yes.
So for care planning and things like that. So you would signpost, I think, in CQC-Pro. Think of it as a sort of helicopter view overlooking your service. So you would have things like your care management system, and you can signpost that you have reports or information, on your care plans, or you're doing your risk assessments through that system. So it forms part of the evidence. Our problem is there are so many different care management systems to link to everything. It would potentially be nice, but I struggle to see that it would be easy to achieve and inexpensive to achieve for the benefits that you would get. So yeah, I think integrating is probably not realistic for most systems at the moment.
Yeah, I do understand that, but what I'm actually concerned about is that if we're not able to integrate with any system, it will be a lot of double work.
Well, again, ours is not an operational system, so you're not using our system for managing your care plans, for doing your normal business as usual stuff. It is just for that sort of higher level view, looking down on your organization. So think of yourself as saying, okay, how do we do our care plans? How do we ensure they're up to date? Well, your evidence might well be in CQC-Pro that your Birdie system, you rely on from it. You might even attach a report from Birdie to say, here we are, we can see all our care plans are updated.
Okay.
But it's also about talking about the other aspects. So when you talk about the outcomes for people, then you're saying, okay, well, as a result of our care plans being flexible, we're able to offer person-centered care in this way for these individuals and things like that. So it's about telling stories as a result of the things you have in place, rather than trying to replace your care management system, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think there's a slightly different emphasis and slant on the use of a system like ours.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for that. I think a lot of people sometimes, when you talk of software, everyone wants one system to do everything, Paul, and you can imagine that happening. Quick question before I go to the chat box. There's been lots of funding being provided by local authorities and the government. Does the funding apply to CQC-Pro as well? Do you know?
I think you'd have to talk to your individual local authority and see what funding is available. Now, there is funding for things like digitalization. You could argue this is part of the digitalization process. So, we would be happy to sort of assist in conversations with local authorities and try and signpost funding. But I'm not aware of a sort of direct offer where somebody says, yeah, here, have your money for CQC-Pro from the local authority. That would probably be a big ask.
You never know. It might happen.
You never know. You could ask, who knows?
Okay, thank you. I think there's also a chat someone has asked a question. Are you able to add all notes, complaints, follow-ups with additional sort of quality statements as well? So I think it's all the things you've mentioned, but pulling them out from, for example, if you have a system already, or even your own paperwork that you've got already, can you add that all in as well? That's what they're saying.
Yeah, very much so. So any electronic document that you have, or any format of document that you have, can be attached as evidence against a particular evidence statement. So yeah, I think it's really compelling to start recording things like compliments that you have, and in due course you'll be able to send those through the portal to CQC, so you can start to influence the way they think about you. That will all go together with the rest of the data they're holding against you, so you can be more proactive about sort of changing your rating for the positive.
Juliet, I think, has got a hand up, and I think she wants to ask a question. So Juliet, please, if you don't mind.
Good morning, everyone. Regarding the CQC-Pro subscription, is it possible to subscribe only to CQC-Pro? Because in the past, when I wanted CQC-Pro, I know I have to subscribe to other programs like health and safety and other things that Citation has. So can we subscribe only to CQC-Pro?
Yes, you can. So it is available now as a standalone service. Since Quick Solutions was acquired by Citation, we can now offer those products as just on their own, especially if you're in the middle of a contract for health and safety or other services. So yes, be very happy to talk to you about just buying CQC-Pro, Juliet.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for that. Sorry, I'm not sure if someone had a hand up, or whether it was just in the chat, or whether they wanted to speak or not. I'm not sure. I think it's important that now the government's obviously looking at trying to be getting care providers to be digitalized, and they've been quite open about it, especially to ramp up this year to get those to be digitalized. I think this is another part and process of it. And I think in the ever-moving world of the new framework that's in place, having an understanding whether you use CQC-Pro or whatever system you use, it's really getting your head around it and finding a way or a place where you can actually look and read all the statements is very helpful, definitely with this system as well. But then an extra hand to help you through it is also very important. There are lots of statements, and I think the hardest thing, and everyone always say the hardest thing to change is change. And but just if you can get an added sort of assistance with that, that's mostly important as well. So
there's a question from Freyan on DBS, I think, somewhere.
yes.
Hi, my name is Eve from Friend Care Home. So my question, it's regarding DBS. Just want to know, is it still going to be 3 years and it has to be renewed after 3 years, or has that changed?
That's not an area of expertise for me, Peter, unfortunately.
No, that was
There's somebody else who
initial
maybe on
question,
this call who can assist with questions related to DBS.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think Dudley's probably the hottest person on DBS, or Ali will be at the moment, but
Yeah.
Listen, let me not quote, because I know it was 3 years, and I know some inspectors may be doing things differently. I know with all the changes and with Ali in there, and definitely an individual, Dominic Headley, who's not here, I will get and give you feedback, because I don't want to share information out and someone says, Dudley, this wasn't correct or this happened. So we'll come back to you and we'll share it with everyone to find out.
I think that
Okay.
if I could just add, there's been quite a lot of questions being posed across the board around DBS, and some of the reasoning behind that is that there has been an upsurge in the number of people who do not have DBS, and companies who are saying to CQC, oh, we didn't realize we needed it. So it's very easy to criticize CQC, but there are some pretty shambling organizations out there that they have to deal with. And at the end of the day, the organizations are dealing in social care are dealing with people in the general public, and social care gets a lot of kicking in the press, basically. So it should be, better done, frankly.
Ali's here, so she might be able to
Indeed. Yeah, the recommendation is 3 years, although some organizations do have policies that do it more frequently than that.
Yeah.
I would also say that you want to keep a culture of open disclosure from your staff, ensuring that if there are any issues they want to discuss that may come up would be really important to record. But certainly I have it in front of me here as well. I'm looking on .gov just to confirm, because like Dudley, I don't like to give wrong information. But every 3 years it should be renewed. But I would honestly say that if you have people who have come from work from abroad on the international system, that you also review that, because there are changes in the background as to how that information is collected at the moment.
All right.
Happy to discuss it further anytime.
One more thing,
One more question, yeah.
what about, if you have it on the update system,
Sorry, I can't hear
on the
you very
update
well.
service, if you have it on the update service, your DBS,
Object service.
update.
the update service, Ali. You know
Right.
the update service.
Yeah, right. Okay, sorry. Yeah, the updates. Update. Oh,
Yes.
that's easier to understand. Yeah, yep.
Do you still have to renew that?
The update service should be looking at a renewal anyway, but I would check.
All
Like
right.
all systems, they are fallible. It's not required to be, my take is DBS is not required to be taken, to be redone. It is best practice to do 3 years. If you're not doing every 3 years, I
Yeah.
would be quite concerned that you don't have up-to-date information about your staff. It is, I mean, I have been caught like this before, and I would say that I would be very concerned if I wasn't doing it every 3 years as a minimum. So I do appreciate that it is best practice.
We'll check that out and we'll put something up. I gather a couple of people can't raise their hands. So Ali, if you'd like to throw your question in, please.
Yes, thank you, Peter. I just wanted to ask, is there a demo available for the CQC-Pro where we can just go on and have a look? So if I want to show it to a colleague before we actually book an official demo, is there anywhere where we can have a look just to see what it's all about and what it contains, please?
There's demos on our website, which is quicksolutions.com, which I will just put in the chat now. Or alternatively, I'm very happy to do one-to-ones with any organization. So we can easily set up a Teams or Zoom meeting and do a demo and personalize it. But yeah, there's videos on our website. Go to the website and look at the sectors menu in our website. You'll see that there are videos you can watch on CQC Pro.
And I see there's a couple of people have mentioned in the chat about having a demo, so I'll pass those on to Paul. If you want a demo, put it in the chat and we'll pass it on to Paul afterwards.
Yeah, please do so. I'd be very happy to talk to any of you individually. No problem.
Any more questions for Paul? Okay, well, thank you very much, Paul. Brilliant. Excellent system.
Thank you very much, Peter. It's been good to know you all these years, and keep up the good work, and that goes to everybody, really. It's been a pleasure to see you all this morning, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Okay, and I'm sure we'll have yourself and Rosie back. I know there's one further event booked later in the calendar year, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions about this, and time to come back again.
Yeah, well, I look forward to it. Thank you ever so much.
Cheers now.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Dudley.
Yes, Peter, thank you very much. I know that we don't have as much time, but I hope you can see, you probably can see my slides. Let me just go for slideshow. Hopefully this works. Always work with technology. Can you see my slides right now, or can you see all my slides?
Yes.
Okay, no problem. Well, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. And usually I'm on the other side of presenting or hosting with Peter. But today I'm going to be sharing some information and some of the work I've been doing. It's around equity, diversity, inclusion, health and social care. For those who may not be aware, apart from obviously doing all the various things across the sector, I'm also the co-chair for the Race Equity Reference Group with Skills for Care. I do my best to try and share as much information and knowledge around diversity and inclusion, which is becoming a big area now within sort of health and social care. Not only is it for the staff, but also for the end user as well. So I think it's hugely important. I'll probably have just 10 minutes and any questions that we have about that and run through just some of the training that I do present around that space. So firstly, as you can see here, I don't need to really share who I am, but I'm sure you're all aware. When it comes to regarding diversity and inclusion, one of the first things we see apart from each other is our names. And with the very diverse nature of our sector presently, you can see pronouncing names is one of the biggest things that you want to get right as well. There's an app I always showcase, and it breaks down phonetically the pronunciation of your name. And as you can see here in the other right-hand side, it says Dudley Sawyerr. A lot of the time, a lot of people confuse because I have two R's and they probably don't get it right. But I also found as well the other concern is for those from for overseas staff who come to this country can struggle with some of the quintessential British names as well. So a lot of the time, some people end up calling me Dudley, but as you can understand, it's understandable to break things down. So having that is really a great way of really welcoming your staff. You know, like people always to say, "Oh, just call me something else instead," or shorten my name. You can get to find out people's names. That's the first port of call. And just a point of reference, 73% of people have had their names mispronounced, regardless of the reason, is hurtful, and it can affect those in various ways. So after all, your name is more than just name. It's part of your heritage, identity, and pride. So it's really important to bear that in mind. But also as well, we must think about now the facts around why EDI is playing such a big role in our sector is because people from ethnic minority communities account for at least more than 1 in 5 of the adult social care workforce in England and play a whole role in the day-to-day care of people in our communities. In CQC State of Care report in October 22, it reported that inequalities pervade and persist though. And data from the Office for National Statistics shows that between 2018 to 2020, highlighted people who were more likely to face inequalities in access to experiencing when using health and social care. They included people from ethnic minority groups, people having long-term conditions, autistic people, people who have learning disabilities, and children and young people. So you can understand how and getting it right is mostly important. There are lots of different characteristics that set individuals apart from each other, such as someone's ethnicity or religion, their gender, sexuality, age, or if they have a disability. All these characteristics could lead to varying levels of also discrimination, but also privilege as well. So getting it right plays a big part. It's understandable to feel that and know that diversity for everyone is having a seat at the table, inclusion is having a voice, and belonging is having that voice to be heard. And we know retention and recruitment is a huge, big factor in our workplaces now. And the turnovers are huge. So if you have a more inclusive working environment, the likelihood of having someone to stay is hugely important. Yes, everyone always say to me, money is a big factor, but if you're in a position in a workplace where you feel like you belong in, your voice is heard, the likelihood is that you're going to stay. There's always the case that you don't get rich overnight in working in health and social care. So other values are there to keep you there. It's hugely important. So if we just look at some of the basic elements around the stats of the workforce and the makeup of the workforce, you can see alone that 23% of the workforce are multi-ethnic, 82.3% are females, the average age is around 45, 1.7 are sort of registered disabled. I know about 9% are under the age of 25 as well. So you can see a huge range of a diversity across our sector. And if you hear me speaking anywhere, I usually tell you that this is probably, if not one of the most diverse sectors to work in. And so we should utilize it, and how do we maximize everyone benefits for it as well. We also have got to add in as well that there are now a huge number of overseas workforce coming into the sector. And as of last year alone, there's over 70,000 workers that came into health and social care in the year of 2023. And it plays a big part because, as you can see, when bringing someone into your workplace, are your services, when they think about pastoral care, do we support them when we onboard them? Do you also understand the nuances and what happens when you come into the UK? But also as well, this goes beyond that, and we think about obviously the protected characteristics. And if we are really looking out for that, not just for staff, but also for our end user. And CQC are really hot on this, and they're looking at services and actually questioning what they're looking at as well. So it leads me to why, I'm sharing this today. And CQC looked at how services are really looking about supporting the sort of the end user. And culture appropriate care, which is also called culturally competent care, is sensitive to people's cultural identity or heritage. It means being alert and responsive to beliefs or conventions that might be determined by cultural heritage. Cultural identity or heritage can cover a range of things. For example, it might be based on ethnicity, nationality, or religion, or it might be to do with the person's sexuality, gender, identity, whether they be a lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. People have a particular culture. So also as well, deaf people who use British Sign Language. So you can understand the range of what we're trying to cover just across the board. But also as well, if you want to just highlight it, and we look at things at the moment presently, whilst we're in the change of the new framework, regulations, when we think about culture appropriate care, are relevant to things such as Regulations 9, which is person-centered care, Regulations 10, dignity and respect, and Regulations 11, the need for consent. I think it's hugely important. And at the moment when I speak, and I've been doing lots of training within care groups and organizations, it's about actually practicing a more, not just person-centered, but I say cultural-centered care, because it's very all well and good to understand about to provide person-centered care. But if you don't understand someone's culture, then the personalized service can be missed. So actually having a culture-centered care before you provide a person-centered care is really hugely important. And so when we look on it and we go further and we say, how can this be demonstrated? And we knew that the actual quality statements, CQC are looking about how it would play a part. So in below here, one of the things that's stated out is with the quality statements, it says here, when people receive care from a range of different staff, teams, or services, it's coordinated effectively. All relevant staff, teams, and services are involved in assessing, planning, and delivering people's care treatment, and staff and work collaboratively to understand and meet people's needs. So you can understand as well, it's important to understand people's culture, background, and also provide that. But if we add in even further, you've got to think about how, and you look at how caring and how it can affect. And as Paul had showed earlier, caring is a big part of what the quality statements are. And I've highlighted some areas in the red here, people's experience of a service is driven by a culture that normalizes good well-being through inclusivity, active listening, and open conversations. This enables staff to do their job well and to be well as well. Also as well, staff has easy access to personalized support that recognizes the diversity of a workforce with proactive and reactive measures as well. And finally, people are supported by staff who feel valued by their leaders and their colleagues. They have a sense of belonging and the ability to contribute to decision making. Finally, I would add in here in regards to when we think about that, one of the statements, and we're talking about the I and we statements, we treat people as individuals and make sure that care, support, and treatment meets their needs and preferences. We take account of their strengths, abilities, aspirations, culture, and unique backgrounds and protected characteristics. It also adds in people's personal culture, social, and religious needs are understood and met. Staff treat people as individuals, considering any relevant protected quality characteristics. And you can see, I can keep in touch and meet with people who are important to me, including family, friends, and people who share my interests, identity, and culture. And then finally, personal, cultural, and social and religious needs are hugely important. And I really go and say this a lot because of late, I've been getting a lot of feedback from a lot of providers. And as with, there's been a huge influx of those from, for example, overseas. There is an understanding of different cultures and thinking how they address different cultures here. And alone, one of these was set out here, which says 45% of LGBTQIA people using social care said they had experienced prejudice. So this alone is what things like CQC are going to be looking at of, are you being fair? Are you being representative? Do people using the service feel that actually you're being treated fairly? And definitely CQC will be looking at it. So all the things that we're demonstrating in regards to CQC-Pro, Skills for Care, is actually bringing into practice of what happens. So actually making sure there's training with staff and how things are going in regards to that. I think all of it as well, if we look beyond that, falls under the Equality Act 2010. And since 2010, the Equality Act has provided the legal framework for protecting individuals from unfair treatment. It's also important to be also aware that as an employer, they can be found vicariously liable for actions of the employees which breach the Equality Act. So the employers have a responsibility to make sure their employees are really making sure they don't breach such things on the Equality Act. But the employer must ensure that their processes and policies comply with the Equality Act, and failure to do so can raise a claim of unlawful discrimination, which could result in the organization being summoned to an employment tribunal. So fully to protect your employees and business from discrimination, it's critical to understand the Equality Act as well as ensuring that workplace cultures is actively inclusive. I know I've got little time left, but just to also understand, as a manager in social care, resources are deployed to make sure that you have resources employed to support both staff and clients, roles and responsibility of managers, and also in relation to EDI. It's also important to identify that you can look at data that can be collated in your organization to monitor equality, diversity, inclusion. And this will support anything with those like regulators come around like CQC, and you can show the data collected and what you've done and how surveys can provide that. But identify ways to monitor and report equality and diversity inclusion and outcomes to stakeholders. I say this also as well can showcase people coming to your service. It's another way of actually attracting people to your business. It's definitely something I always talk about a lot as well. So you can have things in your organization, things such as blind recruitment, things around scoring, objective interview processes, inclusion statements and job adverts, simple things as you see here. As an equal opportunities employer, we're committed to the equal treatment of all current and prospective employees and does not condone discrimination on biases of age, disability, and all the other protected characteristics. We aspire to have diverse and inclusive workplace and strongly encourage suitable qualified applicants from a wide range of backgrounds to apply and join us. This alone, this shows that you're trying to be open and inclusive as a whole. It can be frowned upon, but also looked upon on how people look at the service that you have as well. But also understand as well that also staff as well, also they have an access when they have a disagreement or grievance, there is a process in place of who you can come to, who do you complain to, because there's no point if you have the owner or the manager as the person you complain to if you have a grievance with them. So make sure you have outlets for staff to be able to go and raise that. I would suggest putting things in place that staff are able to come meetings, whether it's via your supervision or separate meetings. Have an open door policy is hugely important. As you can see here, it can go beyond that, and people are taking people to providers to tribunals, so it can happen. But also not just providers, also those who are using your service can also raise complaints as well. And not to scare anyone, but just to really say to you, throughout the annual award statistics for 2021 to 2022, the maximum award was for race discrimination, and it was the amount of £228,117. So you can see how it can also impact on various individuals, and getting it wrong, the cost of it, getting it wrong can be costly. So putting things in place like training, understanding, making sure your staff are really competent around EDI is hugely important. I wouldn't leave without saying there are many benefits of workplace diversity. We now with different cultures, you can attract different clients, you can bring people in. When looking for tenders and bids, it's really important. It can also bring more innovations, creativity, better representation, problem solving as a whole. I think it's hugely important. So I think before I leave you, I always say this, that when I always do my training or if I support people, I always say that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So definitely having a real inclusive culture is always a way of making and giving people that warm feeling as well, regards to that. Finally, I would ask any of your organizations as a whole to say, what does equality, diversity, inclusion look like in your place of work? So please do ask yourselves that question. And how do you practically meet EDI and so that you're CQC compliant? So it's one of the things that I would say that it's important, and it's something that CQC are looking at as well. So evidencing it is hugely important. Please do reach out to me in regards to anything with EDI. I do as much as I can in this space. And you see me speaking nationally, not just working with Skills for Care, but also training professionals in that space as well. Apart from that, if there's any questions, which I know we haven't got much time, please do share any information as well. So I'm open for questions now. I'm finished, Peter. Thank you.
Perhaps you've stunned them all into silence, Dudley.
Thank you very much.
I think it cannot be impressed too highly how important this is from the CQC and also from your local authority quality monitoring teams. We've already heard that organizations have been picked up around EDI, and they didn't actually know they were doing anything wrong. There was no indication, but it was the opinion of the inspectors. So it's an area that you need to get correct, basically. And as someone has pointed out, it's an area for a huge amount of training requirement for overseas workers. And again, that's been worked on back to, Skills for Care, etc. But the training and all those items that contribute to good organizational culture in a social care workplace are very, very important. And that focus is changing now to look more closely at organizational culture, and it comes up time and time again, and we keep hearing things about EDI. We also hear about staff mental health welfare, and more social care organizations are requiring to have some form of employee assistance program. And back to tenders, they put in the tender that they have an employee assistance or employee benefit scheme, and they don't actually have it, and they're being checked up on. And you will find that any local authority, any public sector body, the NHS, etc., all have very well working employee assistance schemes. You need to be in the same space that they are, particularly if you're going to compete for staff.
I think it's important. I think the problem that I sometimes struggle with is that, you know, the particular characteristics can cover many areas. So it could be anything from mental health, it could be anything around support for LGBTQI sort of community. But I also are finding that service users or clients or people we support can also raise concerns about the level of staff, the attitude, what they say, and then how they're called and treated. So do bear in mind it falls under that area as well. So it's hugely important right now. I know we are almost running short of time, and there are a few bits of things that we're going to share. Peter, we've been running, I'm sure if you haven't been or heard, support for those overseas workforce. We've been running a set of seminars that we've been actually running. We've got one this coming Friday, and we also have CQC who are going to be sharing their take on overseas workforce on the 25th as well. We currently have as well 3 live events. One is going to be taking place in North London on the 29th of February, and then we're going to have 2 for one for Southwest London and one for Southeast London as well, that are going to be taking place in March. We'll be having speakers on board. You'll be able to come in there. There'll be lawyers there. There'll be offerings where you can probably access information for overseas workforce. So there's a huge range of things there that we'll be also providing. I think Peter's putting some of the things in the group. So this Friday, it's about interview techniques, how to win people, and making sure you have the right compliance when bringing those from overseas, which is hugely important.
And we have at the future meetings of regarding international recruitment, we have both CQC, apart from Skills for Care will be there as well at some of these meetings. We will have CQC, and we will also have the Home Office at a couple of the meetings. So you can ask questions directly of the Home Office. The date of the next registered managers meeting is also there. It's Friday. No, it's not. It's Wednesday, and it's just disappeared from my screen. And that's going to be February the 21st, which is going to be around recruitment. So we'll have various people there talking about recruitment. We're also, again, back to international recruitment, looking at how people can manage those international recruits that have been abandoned here. And I'm sure many of you have been approached directly by people who've just been left. But again, we're trying to see what we can do with those. Apart from saying thank you very much for attending, we will put the slides, the presentations, etc., will be on the LCaS website very shortly, and I'll go through the chat and take out the links and add those to the various WhatsApp groups, or pass them on as required. If you've got any questions that you want to ask of either CQC or with regard to international recruitment, but you want to do that anonymously, pass the question on to Dudley or myself, and we will sort it out. And as I say, there's a few things in the chat that I need to follow up, which I will do as soon as possible after the meeting. Thank you very much.
And before I go, just a bit of breaking news or good news. We will be running the first providers managers meeting, and will be taking place live in the Care Show in April. I think it's on the April the 24th. We will be having the keynote sort of theatre. So we will be having that live at the Excel during the managers, the Care Show, which is the largest care show. I'm not sure, well, definitely in England, it might be in Europe as well. So we will be having our meeting there. So you are all welcome to come on board. It might be a full house, but it'll be good. We will be having CQC there. By that time, they should be able to answer questions on the framework. And also as well, we'll be having a commissioner on board, and also some great quality sort of care providers as well. But we wouldn't be anything without you. So thank you very much for coming today. Feel free to share questions. We're trying to do a lot. As I said, Peter gets to speak to CQC quite often, and I'm trotting around doing lots in the sector as well. So anything you need from us, please, by all means. We have a WhatsApp group, we have emails, and we also can reach other parties if you need support in regards to that. So thank you very much for joining in. Have a great day if you can.
Thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
the best, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.